Released in 1997, Final Fantasy VII on the PS1, the game to take the franchise into mainstream notoriety here in the West, leading the charge for a new age of JRPGs and gaming as a whole. In the late 80s to mid 90s, JRPGs were considered mid in the West, the C tier of video games. It was Mario or it sucks. God tier games like Final Fantasy IV and Chrono Trigger received poor sales in the West. However, Final Fantasy VII was that golden child who finally saved your parents' marriage. Merchandise, cameos across games, anime, and movies, along with a mountain of media spin-offs just for Final Fantasy VII alone. The game is so well known that even if you've never played a Final Fantasy game before, you know that. Yeah, that. Even the Twilight guy, Robert Pattinson, loved Final Fantasy VII.
It's a love triangle where Aerith or Aerith, depending on what version of the game you have.
Then the prayers of nerds were answered, as in the year 2020, on April 10th, we got the long-awaited remake for Final Fantasy VII. Gorgeous new-gen graphics, explosive gameplay, the same gripping story. The worst part? It's not the whole game. Yeah, so 7 Remake just took the first 4 hours of the original with you being in Midgar, and then made it its own 40-hour game. So there's still a lot left. Then 4 years later, we got Part 2, known as Rebirth. This game truly opens up the world, allowing you to go to various locations, meet new faces, play Queen's Blood for way too long, and enjoy more of the iconic adventure and story we've come to know from Final Fantasy VII. To celebrate its release, if you look up Final Fantasy on Google, you can actually make chocobos run across the screen. You love to see it. So today, I want to talk about the different aspects of this sequel to see whether or not it truly lives up to the monumental status of Final Fantasy VII. Spoiler alert, it does. So how do you play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? With the powerful ingenuity of current-gen consoles, the series has switched to a more real-time, combat-oriented style of game. With a party consisting of 3 characters at a time, you traverse the world and fight all kinds of monsters. You can quickly switch between your 3 characters, each with their own unique playstyle. Cloud uses his Buster Sword, Barret his gun arm, Aerith healing and magic, Red 13 fangs and claws, Yuffie ninjutsu, and Cait Sith does magic tricks. Meanwhile, Tifa, she just likes to... I'm right, I'm left, I'm left, I'm right, I'm right, I'm left, I'm left, I'm right. Now there's also Cid and Vincent for a total of 9 characters, but just like Red 13 in the first game, they aren't playable. Gotta leave something for part 3, am I right? While most of the game is real-time combat, there's also tactical mode, which slows things down, allowing you to choose between special abilities, magic, summons, and items whenever your ATB gauge is high enough. I loved Final Fantasy 16, but Rebirth's combat just makes the game a lot more enjoyable to me due to the fact that we can switch between characters, all of the magical buffs and debuffs in the game, the elemental weaknesses too, and like all the different skills you can use for strategizing makes it feel more like a traditional Final Fantasy game or just a JRPG in general. A cool new feature that was introduced from the Integrate DLC are team attacks. Multiple characters able to use special moves, which allows for all kinds of different matchups. Personally, I like to use Barret's team ability to allow for 3 ATB gauges instead of 2. Unless I just suck ass, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is not an easy game. A lot of the bosses have crazy movesets and can hit you really hard. Although you learn pretty quickly the different characters and the skills you need to focus on for the bosses. Plus, some of the regular enemies throughout the world can be really intense too. The old era of Japanese role-playing games followed a system known as random encounters, a system where when you walk around a map long enough, your characters are transported into a random arena with
Charlie, this is kind of a bad time. I'm in the middle of fighting these cactuar, and you are not helping.
Speaking of cactuar, you know that this desert-dwelling exclusive creature lashes together individual needles for...
Did you make yourself a waifu?
What are you doing, Shadley?
I also like how there's now a skill tree for your characters. When I first saw this, it immediately gave me Final Fantasy X vibes. You spend SP to acquire different abilities for your characters, buffs for more health and MP, new abilities, and the different team attacks. Materia is what allows players to use magic and certain abilities. Green for spells, summons are red, command abilities like steal and assess are yellow. Support abilities to make your other materia stronger are blue, and independent buffs like more health are purple. Word of advice, keep your materia away from Yuffie. She has an addiction.
Help save Wu-Tai! Help save Wu-Tai!
The game does such a good job of having fast-paced, challenging but sometimes bullshit combat with the variety of the character combinations, customization of all the different skill trees, and the materia system. Like, there's so much depth to the combat alone that it's breathtaking. Just like its world. Midgar in Final Fantasy VII Remake was a sight to behold for sure, expanding on the iconic area we know and love. However, it was still just one location for a majority of the game. With Rebirth, we truly get to experience the outside world with 8 different regions to explore, mainly because everything is destroyed in Midgar. But it is what it is. The grasslands, pretty straightforward. Junon, the industrial city of Shinra with the lovely beach town Costa del Sol.
Did you miss us? Cloud? Something wrong?
It should have been me!
Coral, known for its mining, the luxurious Golden Saucer, and its underground prison. We also have the jungle Gongaga, home of Zack, Cosmo Canyon, home of Red 13, Nibelheim, home of Cloud, Tifa, and lastly, the Meridian Ocean and Northwood. Also within each region are different types of chocobo you use to traverse the lands. Our Golden Pico in the grasslands, hailing from Junon, Belle, the gray chocobo who can climb very specific walls. Jump and skate with the Green Boys in Gongaga. Fly in the Cosmo Canyon with the Teal Squad. And swim in the Tears of Nibble with Sarah. And who's there to be our annoying-ass tour guide? Why, it's none other than Shadley from the first game, who's now become the Navi of the series. Shadley, the AI creation of Dr. Hojo, tasks Cloud and his group of friends to travel around the different regions of the game and unlock the Remna Wave Towers, allowing Shadley to learn more about the world. When you discover one, you find several different points known as World Intel. These are all side missions to do throughout the map. You have 7 types of world intel, proto-relics, that reveal mysteries about our Dimension Daddy Gilgamesh. The fun part about this one is how in each region, you acquire these in different ways. In the grasslands, you play tag with those bandits from the first game. Sanctuaries for divine intel on summons. The more you get, the weaker the summon will be when you fight to acquire it, cause holy shit, Phoenix took me so long to beat. Combat assignments where Chadley's annoying-ass waifu talks the entire time you fight rare creatures. Life Springs unlock other intel such as excavation sites and classified intel for hidden boss fights. Finally, Moogle intel, where you have to help a shop owner get his dumbass employees to do their jobs. Disregarding the side and main quests, there's so much to do and explore in this game. Normally in video games, I ignore most side content unless I need to grind. But I honestly had a lot of fun with most of the world intel stuff. Speaking of side quests, play the Solomon quest in Under Junon. They have 2 banger songs just for this one mission. Like I said, there's so much to do in this game, it's ridiculous. And that includes all of the mini games too. Naoki Hamaguchi must love minigames, cause oops, all minigames in Rebirth. Video games are known for having fun side stuff you can do, like Tekken 1 having Galaga in the start menu, load screen minigames, White Knight Chronicles letting you create your own town, Pokemon's Poke Contest, or a lot of card games that I would spend more time on than the actual game. Final Fantasy is known for having a few minigames throughout the series, but Rebirth takes it to a whole new level. Fort Condor! It's like Monkey Balloon Tower Defense, minus the balloons and the monkeys. Our characters are taken back to the nostalgic PS1 era as they must use a variety of shield, sword, and bow units to defeat their enemies to win a proto-relic for our daddy Gilgamesh. This minigame is surprisingly really hard in the later levels. Hey, psst! Hey kid, come here. Ever heard of Queen's Blood?
It's time to do.
Card game minigames are the crack to my cocaine. Final Fantasy VIII had Triple Triad and Tetramaster for Final Fantasy IX. We now enter the world of Queen's Blood in Final Fantasy VII, a card game so integral to the world that you literally have to play in a tournament in order to advance in the story. A grid-based card game where the goal is to have the most points on each row. Each card has a cost of 1 to 3 and different move patterns or abilities that affect the board. Compared to the other Final Fantasy card game minigames, this one was the most fun and easy to understand with so much crazy strategies to it. Want to learn how to play the piano? Well, now you have the chance to do a terrible rendition of Tifa's theme. Each region has a variety of different minigames. Costa del Sol requires you to do a few as Cloud and then the groups Tifa and Aerith in order to progress in the story. The Golden Saucer is Minigame City, the Disneyland of Final Fantasy VII. 2 racing games, more Queen's Blood, a Coliseum, and so much more to do in this game that it's basically the new Mario Party. Gameplay, content, and graphics. Rebirth has got it all. But what about its story? If you liked the original, then you're gonna love this one. And this one, taking the amazing story we've come to know and just making it better with the beautiful graphics, high quality soundtrack, and solid voice acting.
You owe me a pizza.
Now, to avoid major spoilers and making this video like an hour long, I'm just gonna give a brief rundown of the overall story. We follow pretty e-boy Cloud Strife and his band of eco-terrorists, waifus, reject Naruto, if Scooby-Doo was punk rock, actual garbage, a depressed pilot, and if Twilight had guns. All of them come together into this world with a common goal: to beat the mommy issues, god complex, and beauty queen Sephiroth. Now I joke, but what I love about this game and just JRPGs as a whole are the diverse cast. Makes it a lot easier to differentiate everybody than from a literal boy band and a dude and his dog. The game has 14 chapters. As of this video, I just started chapter 9. Chapter 1 starts with Cloud narrating his early days as a soldier on a mission to his hometown Nibelheim, accompanied by his good pal Sephiroth. Wait, aren't you the villain?
Maybe I'm missing something here, but everything you've said makes Sephiroth sound like a stand-up guy.
You know, I'm starting to think this Sephiroth guy is onto something. I will say, it is pretty cool getting to play as Sephiroth at the beginning of the game and just seeing how much stronger he is compared to Cloud. Now, when can I use Meteor?
Huh? You went to my place?
What? No.
I figured you might be there.
The next day, the Katana guys are escorted by Tifa Yeehaw Lockhart towards the reactor on Mount Nibble. Now this is Final Fantasy. The team make it up the mountain and are on their way to the reactor, but surprisingly, the unsafe bridge happens to be unsafe as it breaks and everyone scrambles to stay together. Sephiroth just totally let that dude die, like he did not try to help. Cloud and Sephiroth, work together through the factory to find the reactor. During their search, they come across a hideous beast known as the Materia Guardian, a powerful monster that not even the great Sephiroth can one-shot. Eventually, by the skin of Cloud's teeth, they do manage to kill the monster and reach the reactor. In the reactor, everything changes. Sephiroth mentions how Dr. Hojo, the real villain of this game, is responsible for these disgusting experiments, messing with animals and human life to make artificial materia. It doesn't take long for Sephiroth to discover the truth behind his identity by the single word of Jenova. That single name changes Sephiroth's view on everything, realizing he himself might be a creation from the Doctor as well. Since then, Sephiroth began tweaking more than usual, locked up in the mansion of Nibelheim and reading a bunch of books, realizing he's a part of a special group known as the Ancients, a race from a different planet, and among them was Jenova, the mother of Sephiroth. Knowing this, our mommy issues God complex swordsman goes to Jenova to claim his destiny.
Oh, Sephiroth, dinner's ready. I made dino nuggies.
I should go. Mother is waiting.
And then shit just hits the fan. Cloud exits the mansion to find the entire town of Nibelheim covered in flames. Everyone is confused on why their hero would do such a thing. Cloud tries his best to thug out the flames, looking for his mother. However, his worst nightmare has turned into reality.
I got you. Come on, let's get you up.
Who knew watching a man commit arson and massacring an entire town could be so iconic? And that was just the first chapter of the game. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's story does such a great job of blending action, drama, and comedy, which causes you to care that much more about the characters and the scenarios they are put in. And that's the end for my review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. As of right now, this is probably my favorite game in the series. Zero recency bias. It took a game that I already liked and just amplified it with the voice acting, graphics, storytelling, gameplay, minigames, the list goes on. There's just a few minor nitpicks with Chadley always talking and not being able to play as Vincent or Sid. So if you haven't played Rebirth yet, I would highly recommend it. Granted, if you haven't played Remake yet, you should probably play that one first. Also, now that I think about it, there's always that debate with Final Fantasy VII about which side are you on? Are you Team Tifa or are you Team Aerith? Like, what about Yuffie? She's cool. I mean, how come nobody ever cares about or talks about Yuffie enough?